No, that's a wonderful analogy because that is exactly what a journey in aviation to make it to a professional airline career is all about. You don't just go straight ahead, full blast. You're never going to make it because, like you said, these roadblocks and obstacles will appear, and the trick is to strategize how you're going to get there for the long game, because this really is a long game, isn't it?
Long game. And I had a friend of mine, funny enough, his name's Tony as well. He called me last week. He had some surgery and he goes, man, my check ride has to get rescheduled for 2 weeks. And I said, when you look back, 2 weeks is barely a blip on the radar.
Drop in the bucket.
I said, looking forward, it looks like the biggest hill you could climb. But looking back, you'll go, I don't even remember delaying my check ride 2 weeks, Yeah. And you're spending so much time and money. Why not enjoy the journey? I mean, literally, I said, you're spending more money than really you're ever going to spend on anything. You might as well enjoy the money you worked hard for, to get there. I mean, I get it. Seniority is everything. We hear all these anecdotal pieces of advice. But the truth is, it's okay to enjoy flight instructing. It's okay to enjoy time building and cross-country flying. We used to fly to Nashville, a friend of mine and I, in a Piper Archer from Chicago.
Wow.
We used to fly to Nashville, have dinner, and then fly back to Chicago and do approaches on the way to Indy and Peoria and Champaign, and just had a blast. It was like road tripping with your friends, and you're like, this is what it's about. I get it. Like, getting it done in 6 months is great, but did you really, what's life about?
Yeah.
And I think that for guys like you and I, where we've had some career experience, some successes, some failures, we go, you know what? If I don't make it to the next step, so be it. But I'm here right now. I might as well, put a smile on my face and enjoy this, look out the window a little bit.
That's so true. And this industry really is all about networking and marketing and getting out there, making those connections. In the onset of this interview, you were talking about how, you came across people from your past. It's a small world. This industry is very small. You never know who you're going to run into, and that is built upon these experiences that we collect on our journey. It's really kind of a cliche to say it, but a lot of times it's the journey that is the end goal, not the destination. And this really could not be more exemplified than in aviation in this industry.
Well, to give an example, I know we're kind of skipping ahead of here a bit, but when we flew your last flight on the 145, to me, the upgrade was so far in the distance. And I remember when you said something along the lines of, as you walked out of the airplane for the last time, you said, boy, that's weird feeling knowing I'm not going to come back to this cockpit again as a pilot, And you told me, you said, it will happen fast. And sure enough, August 2019, I had that same experience. I had almost the same leg. It was Appleton to Chicago, not Madison to Chicago, but I had a great captain, and he actually allowed a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine who also works at the airline, to sit on the jump seat. I thought that was really cool.
That is cool.
Because he was a new first officer, and so they need to do an observation flight. So it allowed him to kind of two birds with one stone. But I remember landing at O'Hare on 9 left, and after the wheels touched down and the captain says, my aircraft, I go, that's the last time I'm going to fly this airplane, probably. In the foreseeable future, that's probably the last time I'll fly that airplane.
Yeah.
And we got at the gate, and the captain said, hey, let's go outside and take a picture in front of the airplane. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. I was so kind of numb. You walk out of the airplane, and I went up to JetBridge and I go, this is weird. This is really weird. And it was bittersweet because I enjoyed that airplane, but I was also ready for the next step. But to your point, those moments come so fast. Boy, when I look back, that period of time where I was a first officer on the 145, it flew by. Looking forward, you go, man, I've got forever on this thing. But looking back, and you were there even longer than I was.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got to say, you raised a very good point that it takes a little bit of effort to try to make certain milestones in your career memorable. I mean, they'll be memorable if you do nothing and you just go with the flow and, keep moving forward, and that's fine. But you got to have a friend who was new to the airline observe your last leg as a first officer on the 145 for that company. And that just made it so much more special for the rest of your life. You're going to remember that. I actually had a few experiences like that, but the one that comes to mind most recently is my very first leg at SandPiper was IOE. And back then, you had to observe 2 legs with your check airman and a line FO. And then the line FO would go home for the rest of the trip. And nice, they got paid to go home as a displacement guarantee. And you would jump in the right seat, and then you would fly for that trip with the check airman. And that was your first experience in the actual airplane after having been certified in the simulator and type rated and everything out on the flight line. And it's very intimidating, and the first few legs are always a blur. But what made that nice was the fact that that check airman and I stayed in touch with each other to this day. So here we are 16 years later, still communicating, still talk to each other. But when I came to mainline over here at Legacy, I had to do 4 observations, 2 domestic and 2 international because of my division. And while I was in ground school, he kept texting me, how did day 1 go? How did day 2 go? Do you have any questions? Here's what you need to study. So he has actually been somewhat of a mentor to me in my professional career. And he said to me over text, he sent me a message saying, hey, you got to do your international division. All month I'm doing Hawaii. It counts as international observation. Most people don't do Hawaii because it requires an overnight and you have to get permission from the chief pilot. So here's the chief pilot's phone number in Los Angeles. Call him, tell him that you would like to do this. And once you get the okay, then call Quals, tell them that you got the okay from your chief pilot and you want to be put on this flight on this day. I'll be the FO. You can observe and we can go hang out in Hawaii. So my very first international experience into Hawaii was almost like a full circle, where my very first leg at a professional airline was with check airman Scott. He's a wonderful guy. And my very first experience in Hawaii was observing a flight where Scott was the FO here at Legacy. And I will never forget that experience. It just made it so much more a wonderful memory. And it was because it took a little effort, a little communication, a little, thinking outside of the box to get that. And, it sounds like you had a very similar experience, and I actually applaud you for that. That's wonderful to have that experience and that memory to last a lifetime.
What's fun, some of my advice I've given to some of the FOs that I fly, they'll go, well, hey, that wasn't your job to go, help along with those hockey bags or whatever else. And I always tell them, I say, you're right. But if there's 2 dots that are nearby and we could just connect them real easy, why not? And that's the sort of thing, you may need to connect a couple dots to make those memorable things happen. But what's neat is most of the people in our industry empathize with that. The chief pilots, the directors of flight, they all know that if, it's a father-son pairing or a daughter on a jump seat or a friend or a significant other. I've heard stories, even in our airline, a guy that was flying, he was more in your generation of pilot group.
Wait, what?
One of his last, yeah. What do you mean?
What are you talking about? You, we were never.
I flew one of his last flights as well, and he got the opportunity to. He said, "Hey, I got a really close friend that I would love to fly with me, not an airline pilot," and they made it happen. They made it happen on a Part 91 reposition flight. And I was so impressed. And he said, I never thought in a million years they would even consider it. But the answer wasn't no. The answer was, let's see what we can do. And they worked it out for him. So
is that SandPiper?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was floored. I was absolutely floored. It doesn't hurt to ask. Like you're in your scenario, you call the chief pilot. What's the worst that could happen? He says no.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of courage to ask.
And tact. You can't go in with a bull.
I'll be riding in your jump seat today.
I tell you what.
That's my favorite
advice I have for new guys is you got to be the kind of person that just you enjoy things. If you're in line at the grocery store and you get frustrated, then you don't have the patience to do a lot of things, right? You got to be able to just. I was on an Amtrak train one time. We hit a family of deer. The front engine broke down. The back engine broke down. There was a fire and a flood, and it all happened on the same night. And people were losing their minds. And I just sat there and relaxed because guess what? We're in the middle of a blizzard on a railroad track in the middle of the country. What are we going to do?
And what can you do? Nothing.
You could play a card game. You could go, you get a cup of coffee. I don't know. Just you're on the journey.
You're on the journey. That's it.
Yeah.
And if you treat aviation in a similar manner, you're golden.
Now I get it. I mean, commuting and all the stuff that can really pile up emotionally, getting junior man, getting, called when you thought you were free. I get it. It's frustrating to some, but at the same time, when you have the contrast like you and I have of having a normal job, my phone was at my hip 24/7. I was on call all of the time. Sunday at 7 p.m. Hey, I need you to come out here. Okay. That was your job. So to me, I always have that perspective of, there's good and bad in all of life. So you just have to roll with it. And so when, I get some sourpuss stuff going on, even I get grumpy, right? I mean, it's human nature.
We all do.
So I had a crew that was upset because we were running behind and we had some mechanical and it was their last day. So I went in the terminal and bought every Kit Kat they had at the stand. And I gave everybody Kit Kats and said, all right, everybody get on the, here's some sugar to feel a little bit better. And, you could just see they crack a smile when you come back on the airplane. And okay, but we got the team back together. Now we're all pulling the cart in the same direction and let's just get this done. That's what I enjoy most about the job now is you can have an impact a little bit more when you're the captain than the FO on stuff like that. You could turn the crew around and they reflect your attitude typically. Yeah. And that's kind of a fun challenge for me, even if I'm grumpy. We land in Dallas and I was all grumpy one morning and I said, hey, I'm going to get coffee. What do you want? He goes, I don't drink coffee, but I'll drink whatever you want. I'm like, no. Like that's, I'm like, that's not.
My captain made me drink
orange juice.
I get black sludge.
Yeah. I'm like, was I that bad? He's like, I'm like, sorry, I'll do whatever you want.
Roger, have you had these kind of experiences with the captain forces you to drink coffee and you're like, no?
Fortunately, no. I'm not a coffee drinker. I'm one of the very few pilots out there that doesn't actually drink coffee. I haven't had. Well, it's also helped that from a captain standpoint, I didn't deal with that as long as you guys did because I got out of that world. But
yeah,
I was fortunate enough that I haven't had too many captains that have been too overbearing in that regard.
Yeah, it really does make a difference when you have a good attitude, a positive outlook, and this industry, the journey, it all kind of melds into an experience that at the end of the day, you can sleep good at night, just knowing that you're doing your part and you're treating people correctly and with respect. And I thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure. Yeah.
Now,